Look back at your last week. What do you remember the most? If you said you remember that you were caught in the rain without an umbrella, you couldn't find your favorite socks, that one friend said something hurtful, um, you have that little pain in the knee after that bicycle ride, oh, and you had very good vada pav. You remembered mostly the minor bad things and remembered one good thing. We all do this, and the reason we do that is because our reptilian brain, the oldest part of our brain, which is wired for survival, tells us to. When we lived in caves, if there was a tiger about and you forgot that a rustle in the bushes typically meant a tiger, and you thought, oh, maybe there's a kitten this time, you'd end up being tiger lunch, right? And luckily, we don't have to run into too many tigers, hopefully, in our line of work. And so we can start to attune to the positive, and that takes effort. Not just positive, it possibly takes more effort to attune, and prior to doing that, to recognize that there is a presence and the impact of a negative emotion, and then to start to engage with it. So, good first step is to recognize where emotions live and what do they do there. If I had did a quick exercise with you and asked you to wordlessly, using your body, denote emotions, and I said happiness, what did you just do? You lit up, smile, hands are open, you're sitting up. Sadness is the opposite. You became a little small, you're looking away. Yeah? Fear or threat. Eyes are bigger, body is tighter, hands go to the back of your neck. Victory, right? Arms go up in a V position. So that's a series of emotions. We all feel them in our bodies first. And unless we watch out, what do we mean by attunement? Is that unless we watch out, we tend to react to emotions physically first, and we don't engage our minds till later. So, our goal in this conversation is to intentionally shift on that spectrum from reacting to responding, from not being mindless to being more intentional towards it, and that way gaining options before you make a choice. So, let's start with a fearful or a threatening situation. So, this could be physical, this could be psychological, it could be social. So, it could be a bear, it could be an exam, or it could be a important meeting, right? What do? We freeze or fight or flight, or even tend befriend. What does that mean? Freeze. I don't have anything to add to this meeting. Or fight and disagree with everybody and make yourself visible. Or flight and say, sorry, I can't make this meeting at all, I've got something else happening. Or tend and talk to the juniors in the team, figure out what their needs are, and hope you get the same support higher up. Or befriend, talk to the people about whom the meeting is, figure out what their requirement is, and work backwards. Now that's range, and that was one example. This range is available to all of us all the time as long as we think about it in a crisis situation. Yeah, and that's attunement. Let's look at a few more emotions and how can we attune better. Anger. So I said this earlier, that we're told that suppressing anger is the best thing we can do for ourselves and for the good of others. But it's important now not to harm anyone, yourself, others, or pieces of furniture that you might kick when you're upset. But it's important to notice and acknowledge the presence of that anger. My therapist taught me that anger is actually a protective function. Its job in our life is to tell us that a situation or a person is threatening a boundary or threatening my self-respect. And so to ask the question, what unfairness or injustice is this anger here to tell me about, is a great first step. To move now, after having recognized it, from reaction to response, instead of saying you're, just turn that around, and instead of saying you're the worst friend on the planet to even say that to me, say I'm hurt by that statement, and even saying this is making me scared that it might cost us our friendship. That opens the conversation up, as opposed to an unregulated sort of anger which makes you say and do regrettable things. This way you gain an opportunity for genuine connection. Yeah. On to talking about sadness and attunement. Now sadness can be very overwhelming, and so we push against it and we say, oh, I'm not sad, I'm just looking like this. right? So, to acknowledge that I am sad, that it is making me feel helpless, that maybe I need to talk to someone about it is important. I'll give you an example. A relative is pulling away because their life circumstances have changed. For example, my brother got married. Something as simple as his emergency contact would now be his partner. But just realizing that made me feel like, oh my God, my emergency contact is him. Nothing has changed for him, but something has changed, for me. So if I don't recognize that sadness, sit with that sadness, and then go back and say, hey, I know that you have other people that now take priority, but what can you and I do to continue to keep that connection? I'll go into some kind of dysregulated, anger, jealousy, and so on, all of which is not required, right? So that's sadness for you. No easy answers, but important to acknowledge. The next one I have is boredom. So, what does boredom do? It's usually to tell us that maybe you need to look at different direction, maybe ask different questions. It's essentially a catalyst for change. So, to acknowledge that this is boring for me is the first step to acknowledging change and then looking at options available. Similarly, confused. Usually, confused is the first feeling that then leads to one of the others, and it's important to think of it as a maze. Either I figure out by being okay with a few false turns, walk with somebody else who's in that confusion, ask for help, look for somebody who has an aerial view and say zoom out and give me a perspective, right? Finally, I'll add being busy. Entirely too often we are manically busy. Now, if you're occasionally busy for a bit, there are reasons to it, that's okay. But if busy is your lifestyle and it's for reasons within your control, and you'll know this that you're being busy on purpose because you're trying to avoid something else that you can't control. Yeah. So that's a great starting point, and then you'll go from there where you want to go when you're ready. In closing, I want to share with you an exercise. You can pause and go through that exercise and then restart. The exercise called Tree of Life, and I received it from an amazing facilitator called Madhu Shukla. And this exercise in this context helps you refocus on what's important. What do you want to do about it? Yeah. So now you will see the process for the exercise. How do you go through it? And then what are questions you ask? Ideally, do this with someone close to you. It's a great way to build a connection. It's a great way to talk about your life with somebody and receive somebody else's experiences in life. So go ahead, attune to your emotions, even the negative ones, with full spirit and full hope.